Hey guys, in today's video we're going to be learning how to make this beautiful kimono with a collar and a front button and also a gathered effect at the waistline, the front, and of course the back. So if that is what you're interested in learning how to make, then keep watching this video to the very end and let's head straight to the pattern drafting tutorial. You'll be needing your basic bodice front. As you can see, I did not remove the excess patterns by the side because we are not going to be removing it now. So I'll go ahead to go through this basic body front. My neckline is in the basic, of course, because we need a collar at the neckline. I imputed my bust point and of course my under bust, my waistline, my hip line, and the hem. You might be wondering why did I impute my under bust, but keep following, you will find out as we go on in this tutorial. So now we are going to be working on our waist. From my bust apart measurement, where I took in my dart length, I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches. Or you can start from the very last dart leg and marking 1 inch. So let me not confuse you. Start from the very last dart leg and marking 1 inch. From that very point, marking 1 inch or 1.5 inches. And from there, you impute your new dart. Okay, so now I've marked in, I'm going to be checking how many inches it is, and from there I'll go ahead to mark it on my under bust and also on my bust point and also on my hip line, just like as if we are trying to create a new dart. I'll go ahead to use my ruler to join these dotted lines together. And I haven't done that now. We're going to be creating the dart excess for it. You impute. Okay, now I'm going to be marking the length of my dart for the hip line and also my dart excess, which is 0.5 inches on both sides. I've marked it and I'm going ahead to connect it to my bust point and also to the hip region part of the dart, like so. So what we are doing here is we are basically trying to create additional darts. Looking at the picture at the top of the screen, you find that there are 3 pleats at the waistline and we just have 1 dart. So we're going to be imputing 2 more darts to make it 3. I've imputed the first one, and just like we did, I've imputed the first one, so we're going to be imputing the third one, all right? So just like we did for the second one, I'm going ahead to mark 1.5 inches or 1 inch from the very last dart leg. And when I do that, I check the measurement from that point to the center front, and I go ahead to impute the same thing at my bust point line, my under bust line, my waistline, and of course my hip line. And when I do that, I go ahead to use my ruler to join the dotted lines together. That is what I'm doing right now. So when I'm done with that, I'll come to the waistline and impute my dart leg or the excesses, your dart excess. Okay. So now I've gone ahead to impute my dart excess. Also, you're going to be marking your dart length towards the lower region of your bodies. And then I'll go ahead to connect this whole point together to form another dart, which is going to be our third dart and the very last dart for this very particular tutorial. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do well to hit the subscribe button. Click the bell notification so you'll be the very first person to know whenever I post interesting pattern drafting tutorials like this. Now the 3 darts are complete. So do not forget, we are going to be adding the number of this dart excess to the side. We've already done that for the first one when we drafted our normal basic bodies. So now we're going to be adding the number of dart excess for the 2 that we did, which obviously is 2 inches. So I'm going to be adding 2 inches from the side of our original waist side seam. From the side of our original waist. Please, I don't know, I'm lacking words to use to describe it, but I hope I'm doing that. So that same 2 inches will add it to the hip line, we'll also add it to the hem line, and also add it to my bust line. Also go ahead to add it to the bust line. So the 2 inches of the dart that I added to the waistline, I went ahead to add it to the bust line. I also added it to my hip line and also added it to my waistline. So that of the bust line, I decided to reduce it by half an inch, which is 1.5 inch. So I'm going to be connecting these whole points together now, and we're going to be forming our new side for this design. I'm going to be connecting everything together so we can form our new design, our new side for this very particular design. So here is what it looks like. So now I'm gonna head to form up everything. Now remember it's a kimono. So this is our sleeve. I'm labeling front and I'm labeling back. Now from the center of the sleeve, I'll use my scissors to separate the back and the front. I'll set the back aside so we can work on the front. So I'm going to be attaching the front to the tip of my shoulder like so, using my sellotape to hold it down. So having done that now, look at the way I'm fixing in my sleeve. So I'm using my tape to hold it down. Of course, I'm going to be holding it down at strategic points so it doesn't move around when I'm working with it. And I'm holding it down like so. So at this point, this is what we have. Normally, I would always use a different color of paper for my sleeve. But this time around, I really didn't know why I didn't use a different color. But please, you understand everything as we go on. I went ahead to connect that point of my round sleeve to the waist. Okay. And then we are going ahead now to cut out. So we have what we are working with separate. We have the whole pattern that we're working with separate. So at this point, I figured that my round sleeve, I needed to add some inches to it. So it's very free when you put it on. Okay, the round sleeve needed some inches to be added to it. So it's free when you put it on. So I went ahead to tape back the parts that I've already cut so we can add some inches to the round sleeve. And that is what we're going to be doing now. So going in with my tape, I'm going ahead to add 1.5. You can decide to add 2 inches, but please do not overdo it. I think 1.5 on 2 inches should be okay. So I added 1.5 inches and I extended my round sleeve measurement to that very 1.5 inch mark. And from there, I connected it back to my waist line like so. So now we're going ahead to cut this out right now. And of course, I'm going to be removing the whole thing. Like I said, we are removing the excess papers now to leave the pattern the way it should be. After we've done all the addition of that, every other thing. So this is the way the pattern is. This is what we're having right now. Okay? This is what we're having right now. Remember the waist and all that. So this is what we're having right now. And we'll go ahead to work on this very pattern that we have right now. Now, the next thing we are going to do is looking at the screen, you find out that the design of the dart from the bust, from the under bust. Remember I said I marked my under bust and you guys might be wondering. So that very part that looks like it was stitched started from the under bust to the waist for the front. It started from the under bust to the waist. So now you're going to be stitching just between these parts, between the under bust and the waist. That is where you're going to be stitching if you're sewing on your fabric. Now there's something I want to do. I'm going to be changing the position of my dart so it is slanted towards this side. And that is what I'm doing right now. So for the very first dart, I'm going to be connecting it to the second one. And of course, marking my dart leg. Everything is the same. Just that I'm changing the position of the dart to slat towards one side. I'm taking this to the bust apart measurement from this point. And also the very dart leg are also the same thing that I marked. Please look closely. You'll find out that that is exactly what I'm doing. So I'm checking how many inches it is apart. It is 1.5 inches. I'm going to have to draw in the dart for the last one. And that is what I'm doing right now. From the very bust apart measurement, I'm connecting it to that 1.5 inches point. And same that leg we have is what I'm going ahead to mark. Now, in this very particular tutorial, you will do a lot of ironing when you're sewing this cloth. And preferably, you have to use a steam iron. You do a lot of ironing because if you watch, you'll find out that the iron helped everything to come in place. Now, these are my new darts. You're going to be doing a lot of ironing. So you can, just like where you're trying to form pleats. So you'll be using your iron to form the pleats that were made from these darts after you must have stitched it to the direction you want it to be. So now here are my new darts. Okay, I'm using my marker to make them visible so you guys can see. Here are the new darts that I have. If you have any question, please drop it in the comment section and I'll reply you ASAP. So these are, I've gone ahead to show you. I did this so you guys will know that these are the darts. Here are my darts, okay? I'm trying to show you guys very visible the very part where we slanted the darts from the underbust line. Okay, so this is what this whole place looks like at this point. So we're going to be adding fresh pattern paper to the lower part of it so I can create that A-line effect. So from my hemline, I went ahead to add more inches. You can add 3 inches depending on how full you want it. But I think 3 inches should be okay because you already have fullness by the center because of the darts. And also we added them. So you already have fullness there. 3 inches should be okay. If you want to do more, there's no problem. So from my waistline, I connected it to that 3 inches mark at the hemline. And I'm going ahead now to cut off the excesses. So having detached all the excesses, this is what we are having right now. So now this is the very part of it that you should pay close attention. Remember you're cutting these darts open on the paper and you're going to be using your chalk to trace them out on the fabric. So you're assuming that this is your fabric now. You're going to be stitching just this very part. Like I said, between the underbust and the waistline, that is where you're going to be stitching. Okay, then you will use your iron to iron up the pleat that is going to be formed at the bust point region and the lower region of this dress, just like I'm doing now. Please watch closely, you will find out what I'm doing now. Whatever I'm doing now is what you're going to do. Please watch closely. Initially I was trying to face it towards this direction, but I found out that I had to face it, towards this way. So that is what I'm doing right now. You're going to be stitching this at the back side, at the wrong side of your fabric, okay? You're going to be doing this stitching at the wrong side of your fabric. And of course, use your iron to make the lower part of the dart that is remaining, that is the excess of the dart that is remaining at the lower part and on the upper part visible. So once you've stitched here right now, okay, as can you see that? Please, you're stitching at the wrong side. So once you've stitched it at the wrong side, you're going to be ironing with your electric iron, steam iron. If you don't have a steam iron, please sprinkle water on it before you iron it out. The other pleat at the lower part of it and the pleat at the upper part of it, you have to use your iron to make it visible. So that is what I'm trying to show you guys. You have to use your iron to make this very part visible. You can decide to extend your ironing, all the way. You can decide to extend it, but something around the hip region is okay. So you have to iron down this part, okay? And also for the upper part of it, you have to use your iron to make this very dart visible. Same thing you're also going to be doing to the other ones. The same thing you're also going to be doing to this very other part. Like I was explaining, you have to sew between the underbust at the wrong side of the fabric. And of course, use your iron, your steam iron, to get the remaining dart excess on the lower part and on the upper part to be visible. I hope that is fully explained. I hope you guys understand. But if you have any question, just drop a comment in the comment section and I'll reply. So this is what I'm doing right now. And of course, I'll go ahead to tape that very part down. Like I said, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, do well to join this wonderful pattern drafting tutorial family. And we also saw on this channel, like I said, I'm just very far from my work studio now. And once I resume, sewing tutorials will commence proper, sorry. So you do not want to miss out on any of these valuable content that I'm dropping here. So please do well to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you'll be the very first person to know when I post lovely tutorials like this. Thank you. So we're going ahead now. So after I've taped down the whole thing together, this is what the front is looking like. As you can see, it's already looking like the design that we have at the thumbnail on top of the screen, okay? So this is what it looks like. Like I said, those very dark excesses that we did not sew in, you're going to be using your steam iron to make them very obvious. But you have to iron well. If you don't love ironing, you have to love to iron because of this design. So you have to iron. And for the hip part, you can iron out the pleats all the way to the hip region. That will be okay. If you want to take it down, there's no problem, but all the way to the hip region, that will be okay. So I'm using my marker here to make the pleats visible so you guys can see it. And this is actually what the front part of this dress looks like. Now, do not forget, there is a button effect at the front part of it. So we're going to be doing that right now. There's a button effect at the front part of it. We're going to be doing that right now. You want to cut 1 inch of a paper and attach it to the very front part of it. So that is what I'm going to be doing right now. So I'm attaching fresh pattern paper, which is going to serve as the place where the button will be fixed. For this design, the button was not attached, and I think it was stitched up. The button area of it was stitched up. But the major reason for it was because of the collar. But then you can decide that yours is going to be having button all the way down, or you can decide to stitch up the button part of it and put artificial button, or you can decide to stitch it up and not put any button at all. So it's left for you. Whatever you want to do is going to work perfectly okay for this design. The actual reason why they added that, I think for the sake of the picture on the thumbnail or the one on top of the screen, was because of the button at the collar. So if you want your button to come down all the way to the hem, it's fine. If you want to stitch it up and attach artificial buttons, it's fine. If you want, whatever way you want to do it, it's just going to be okay, so long as you've drafted the pattern to be nice. So this is me trying to put the button part of it all the way down to the hem. So I'm going to be putting it all the way down and we'll head over to the back. Of course, my back, we're going to be focusing on the waist also. Now, do not forget the neckline is on the basic because you're going to be attaching a collar. Your neckline for the back also is on the basic. Now, same thing we did to the waist of the front, we're also going to be doing to the waist of the back. I'm extending the dart, okay? I'm extending the dart from the existing dart that came from the basic bodies. I'm going ahead to extend the dart. We need 3 darts. So I have one already that came from the pattern. And we're going ahead to attach 2 more from the existing one. So from my very bust apart measurement here, I marked 2 inches. And on that 2 inch, which is going to serve as the new bust apart for the second dart, you're going to be imputing your dart excess. Same thing you will do to achieve the third one. I explained this earlier in the very first one for the front pattern. So I'm doing the same thing for the back pattern, just in case if you didn't get me clearly at the first one. And that same 2 inches you marked from the bust apart measurement, you go ahead to mark it from your center front. You want to check how many inches it is. And same thing you're going to be doing on your bust line and on your hip line. So having done that, you use your ruler to connect the points together to form a straight line, which is going to be your bust apart measurement for the second dart. And after that, on your dart leg, you're going to be marking your dart excesses 0.5 inches on both sides. You're going to be connecting it to the bust point and also to the hip lower region of your bodies. So that is what I'm doing right now. So we're going to be doing this now. So marking our dart leg. So if you watch, the second one extended out of the original side of the pattern, but not to worry, keep going. So I actually extended it out, just the way it fell, or the way wherever the 2 inch point is, I extended it. It went outwards, so there's nothing to worry about. I extended it outwards. And I went ahead to connect the dart legs to form the third dart. So that's what I'm doing now. Now we have the 3 darts ready for the back. We are going to be withdrawing our side seam or our side for this tutorial. So the sum up of those 2 extra that we added is 2 inches. And I went ahead to extend 2 inches from the very point where the dart stops. We're going to extend 2 inches from that very point. And also this very one extended outwards. So instead of marking 2 inches here, I went ahead to mark 2.5 inches. You can decide to extend it to 3 inches since it's the hip. Of course, it should be bigger than the other parts of the pattern. And coming over to the waist, this side also extended outwards by close to 1 inch. So here I'm going ahead to mark about 2.5 inches or thereabouts to this point. And I'll be using my ruler to connect everything together like so. So when I got to the hip region, I decided to make it 3 inches because it looks like it was smaller or it was kind of inwards. I decided to make it 3 inches. So I added additional half an inch, kind of eyeballed it and I added additional half an inch to it. I'm going to be joining this whole part now to the hem. So I checked here it was 3 inches, and for the hem also I added 3 inches to it. Remember, whatever measurement we have for the hip is also the measurement we are going to be using at the hem. So I'm going to use my ruler to connect the points together. So you will find out that the back part of it, the effect did not start from the waistline, but we'll come to that. So here I'm going to be attaching the sleeve for the back because it's a kimono, obviously. And before I do that, I want to chew it with the front pattern so I'm not having issues while sewing or while stitching up. So I'm going to be taking my front pattern and place it here, shoulder to shoulder, to see where the sleeve or the kimono sleeve of the front one started. So with my pen, I'll go ahead to trace out like so, following the neckline of the shoulder of the back. I'm saying a lot of things, but you guys, please, I hope you understand. So I also went ahead to check the round sleeve, and this was what I got. I went ahead to place my sleeve for the back exactly the same way it is with what I traced out. Including the additional 1.5 inches that were added to the round sleeve so we can be able to move our arms around while putting on this dress. So like I said, if you watch closely, you will find out that the very design of the stitched part of the dart of the back did not start from the underbust. It didn't start that upper part of it like it did for the front. It started from the waistline and extended all the way like about 2 inches below the waistline. So I'm going to be marking 2 inches below my waistline right now, like so. So basically the stitching effect, or where the darts were stitched on the front and on the back and not on the same lane or the same place. That of the front was stitched between the underbust and the waistline. That of the back was stitched between the waistline and 2 inches below the waistline, or 3 inches below the waistline, but 2 inches because I really do not love dropped waist design. So I used 2 inches below the waistline, and this is it. So you're going to be doing the whole stitching at this very point. Like I said, this one started from under bust to waistline, and this one started from the waistline 2 inches below the waistline for the back. So this is what this whole thing looks like now. We're going to be adding an additional pattern paper, or we're not adding, we're going to be adding the A-line effect for the lower part of it. So I marked in 3 inches at my hem. Like I said, you can use whatever it is you want. You can decide to do more. I marked in 3 inches at my hem like so. And now from the very 2 inches point, not the waistline, from the 2 inches point, please, not the waistline, we are going to be connecting it to the hem to meet that very A-line effect that we extended from the hemline. From the 2 inches point below the waistline, not from the waistline. And I haven't done that now. I'm going to use my scissors to cut off the excesses around this pattern so we can be left with our pattern that we're working with. So this is what it's looking like at the back. I'm trying to give a curvy effect at the hem. To get this, just check the measurements of the other part of the hem and also measure that very side. You're going to get the measurements and cut off the excess that is left. So same thing we did to the front, we're going to be closing up this dart right now. So you want to take from one dart leg to join to the other dart leg. Remember, you're sewing this up at the wrong side of your fabric. So I'm going to be stitching this down with my tape. And of course, like I said, you're going to be using your steam iron to fold over the remaining pleats. You're going to be using your steam iron to fold over the remaining pleats. So we didn't slant this very part for the back. It's straight, obviously. We are not going to slant it. Same thing we are going to be doing for this also. Now for the collar, I want to explain. You have to take the measurement of your round neckline, front and back. Now turn your fabric on a bias and measure out that measurement. You have to sew it round the neckline. I'll be dropping a tutorial. If you do not know how to sew up a one-piece collar, I'll be dropping a video that has the tutorial of a one-piece collar so you guys can go check it out. So drop a comment in the comment section if you do not know how to sew a one-piece collar or cut a one-piece collar and sew it, so I can drop you the link of the video that you will check out for how to cut and sew a one-piece collar. Thank you. So I've done the second one right now. I'll go ahead to do the third one. You want to be very careful while doing this because this is going to be the beauty of your design. Now, there's something I want to say. Despite the fact that my dart leg or my dart intake is 1 inch, if you desire more pleats, you want so many pleats, you can decide to use 1.5 inches as your dart intake. You can decide to use 2 inches. Just make sure that whatever you are doing, that by the time you have stitched it up, you arrive at your actual waist measurements. Whatever you're doing, by the time you stitch it up, you arrive at your actual waist measurement. So you can decide to use 2 inches as your dart leg. If you want your printing to show very well, you can decide to use 2 inches as your dart intake or 1.5 inches as your dart intake. Just make sure that at the waistline, you arrive at your actual waist measurement. That is the secret of getting this design beautiful on you. At the waistline, you arrive at your actual waist measurement. And if you follow the way I've said it, the only thing you need to do is to increase your dart length and increase the measurements you're taking by the side, and you have everything perfectly okay. So here is what the back looks like. I'll go ahead to rephrase. This is the front. And of course, this is the back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.